Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audio Visual Services. And once again, I am joined by my fabulous co-host, Mr. Ryan Finch.
I'm fabulous. I didn't even know.
You are fabulous.
That's great. I feel fabulous.
You know, we had a lot going on right here just before we were hitting the zero on the clock. So
I saw
back.
some things happening behind the scenes, and I am curious.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We had some behind the scenes video going on, so you never know what you might need. But, Finch, I didn't tell you earlier today, I saw a full blown movie shoot going on at one of our local country clubs.
Really? And how did you know it was a movie shoot?
By the 5 trucks full of equipment and, of course, the craft services out front.
Crafty. We don't get crafty in the AV world, do we?
No, that's actually fairly disappointing.
In fact, we don't even get fed half the time.
No. But there was about 400 people working, and that made me really happy to see all those people doing their thing. I did almost walk into the scene as well.
Well, look, you're always ready to be a background, an extra.
Whatever they needed, I was ready.
But you're non-union, so they're going to take advantage of you. Just be careful.
Okay, all right, that's a good point. Well, listen, we're back again today. Last week, we spoke about our new service, the fundraising meter, and we demoed that a little bit. Finch, do you have a little picture of that? We'll pop up real quick.
Pow! Yes, I do.
Wow, that was pretty good.
I know.
That was pretty good. Now, to learn more about that, go to fundraisingmeter.com. But that is not the point of today's discussion. No. But before we get into the point of today's discussion, Mr. Finch, tell them how to find us.
Well, you can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube Live, and you can do that every Wednesday at 1 p.m., just like it's Wednesday at 1 p.m. right now. So there you go. You can also find, if it's good, you can find this on Instagram, chopped up in little highlight pieces. If we have no highlights, you won't see anything. But most of the time, we have highlights. So you can check back Instagram and Facebook for some quick video bites, chunkable pieces, as our friend Andrew Castellano would say. And what else? So what am I forgetting? Also, drop us a comment. Be part of the show, please, and thank you. Engagement. Everybody loves engagement, right? Ask a question. We'll answer it live. And while you're at it, share, like, subscribe, smash the subscribe button. Thank you. All the above. Show some love. Much appreciated.
Okay. I think you did your part fairly fabulously.
Fairly fabulous. Fairly fabulous feels like a nice thing to shoot for. That guy Ryan, he's fairly fabulous.
Yeah, it could be low bar. I'm not sure. Honestly, I've never been fabulous before, so I don't really know. But listen, so today, as we're going to keep on the topic of technology, we've had a lot of discussions about hybrid. We've shown a lot of different things. But today, we're going to talk a little bit about hybrid meetings. Now, how's a meeting different than an event? Well, maybe we have a graphic there of an event. Wow, that was really timely. Almost on cue.
Yep, I was ready.
So this is a hybrid event where we had 250 people in an in-person audience. We had 150 people in an online audience. And you're actually looking at multiple cameras live on site. And this is what the online audience is seeing. And you can actually see the part of the fundraising meter going along the top there too. Wow, pretty cool. But how about a meeting? How is that different from an event? Mr. Finch, how is a meeting different from an event?
I'm glad you asked, Joe. Well, a meeting in general, I would say, is more function over form, right? Where we're more concerned about having an effective collaborative environment where the people in the room and the people outside the room, we can kind of blur that wall in between them and let them share ideas, solve problems, do whatever their work is, in a virtual or hybrid setting. So really what that gears itself towards are businesses, corporate, groups that are having internal discussion and meetings as opposed to what you just saw before, which was more of an external public-facing, fun, social element, fundraising, nonprofit side. So again, we're dialing back down into function versus form.
That was very well said, Mr. Finch. It's
Thank
almost like you do this every day.
Well, I am fairly fabulous. So, I mean,
That's the word on the street today. I mean, I'm not sure who's putting this out there, but that's what I heard. Either way, so if we're going to talk about function, then there's probably multiple ways to do this, I would imagine.
There are several different ways to do it. And it feels like every day we find a new one. So not a one size fits all for sure.
Well, I guess the first question is, can I do this myself? Why do I need a company like a corporate AV or another AV company? Why do I need you?
That's an excellent question. And in general, people do this by themselves all the time. And the funny thing is, we talk about how groups fared during the pandemic and how they pivoted to hybrid, and we're in a hybrid workforce. So it's very likely that these groups are doing this already on a daily basis with the tools and systems that they already have built out. Maybe they're in an office space with a conference room that has a Zoom room integration built out, or we have some microphones built into the desk or in the ceiling. We have the speakers and screens on the wall with a camera built in, and it's ready to go. It's plug and play, and that's great. And that honestly has been getting people through the last the last couple of years. The challenge is when you go to try to recreate that in an environment that isn't your own, that isn't the comfy home, the work from home studio that many of us have built out, or that conference room that I just described. It's when you're trying to recreate that experience and you have to kind of build it all out. Now, look, there are plenty of locations and venues that have a level of it built in, and it's set up usually to do one thing, and hopefully it works for you. If not, you will more or less have to reinvent the wheel in that space. And so that becomes the challenge, is groups are looking for places that have some venues that have some value added, some technology built in. And some spaces do a really great job of that, but it always comes back to help and staffing and support. And I think that more than anything else is where, we come in, is that know-how, is that how to set this up, because it's not something you're familiar with.
Well, okay. I think, we're seeing this in many different forms and many different ways. And I know that, originally, just like you were saying, people had done things in their homes or in their offices, and with that hybrid mentality, remote, environments, that this is different. And I think that's the part that's kind of catching some people up, because this is the part that's usually added on last for us. We get the call and people say, okay, we're holding our meeting. We're going to need this screen. We're going to need a projector. We need this number of microphones. And then the day before the event, they say, oh yeah, and we're also going to have this Zoom meeting, this Teams meeting. We're going to be, Google Meets. We have them all coming in from so-and-so. And you go, well, now that's different.
Right. Changes some things.
And I think that's the part that everybody doesn't really understand. Maybe we should start with kind of some levels to this. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
All right. So what would be a simple way? I'm in a break, I have 20 people in a meeting room kind of way to do this.
Well, I would even take it a step sooner than that, right? Is that the most basic way is, look, you could be in a small little conference space with a small handful of people. Drop your laptop in front of you and make it work, right? So I don't want to glaze past that, because honestly, that could take care of a lot of needs, especially on the smaller scale. Especially when groups start seeing that there actually is budget associated with this type of setup, that, well, we can kind of do this ourselves. And that is fine, honestly. If it's functional and it works, fine. Back to, function versus form. Okay, now we take it a step further, and this is really where we come in, is that kind of tier one, that bottom level. Ooh. And that is, like Joe said, maybe, 10, 15, 20 people. I'd cap it off at that, in some sort of a small meeting space. Could be a hotel, one of the side spaces in a hotel, or maybe it's a conference center or an office space that doesn't have anything built in anywhere, right? And in that case, what we're starting with is a laptop, right? Is because we need to interface with whatever it is, that platform you're using, whether it's Zoom, whether it's WebEx or Teams, preferably Zoom, because those other two are less friendly in general, but we won't get into that. But we're using a laptop to patch into that, that platform that you very likely already have established that you're going to use, right? And then it's what else? All right, well, we need a way to be heard. Okay. So in that
Okay.
case, we would start with something simple and, preferably something that could sit on the desk. Because what we're going to show you is when we get into microphones, that actually changes quite a lot in terms of the production level. So we start with something, it could be what we would call a huddle pod. So this is something that connects right to the computer. You drop it down. It's kind of like a Polycom, for those of you who are familiar with a Polycom. It connects right to the laptop that you're, running Zoom or WebEx or Teams, and it becomes both your microphone and your speaker. So think of this as something that's just beefing up a little bit, beefing up what's
So,
already built into the computer.
Ryan, would you call this a speakerphone?
I mean,
You
other
said
people will.
speaker, microphone. To me, that sounds like a speakerphone.
Yeah, look, sure. To me, a speakerphone is more of a phone, like a telephone with a speaker in it. But you know what? Semantics, tomato, tomato.
I mean, it does look like a hockey puck on top of that, doesn't it?
It does look like a hockey puck, and actually, they come two in a pair, right? So the idea
Oh.
is you can gang them together. We still have one laptop. We drop two of them on a table, whether it's a boardroom or maybe two legs of a U shape, preferably if they're kind of close together, and that'll just extend out what's already built into your laptop, right? What's already built in, we're just making it a little bit more robust to service 10, 15, 20 people, right?
Yeah. In general, I would say you have a radius of about 8 to 10 feet off of each one of them. And so that it'll give you coverage. Look, this is not going to sound like Carnegie Hall. I mean, you got to know that right away. It's going to sound a little bit like an old Polycom or speakerphone, or it's going to sound a little bit like that. But you're able to communicate. You have it coming back and forth, and it's a simple way to do it.
Right.
What if we wanted to add video to that scenario?
Absolutely. Well, in that case, look, the laptop is going to have a camera built in. We'll start there. But what happens when there's 10 to 15 people and they want to at least be seen a little bit when they're speaking, obviously? So in that case, we would use something like a Hudley IQ. Now, what this is quite literally a high-definition professional webcam that we can put on a tripod, which means we can put it at the end of that boardroom table, or we can put it at the open side of a U shape, which are pretty common in meetings. And it's also got a wide angle, which means now you're going to pick up really everyone who's sitting in front of it. It doesn't matter if they're not directly in front of the laptop. You're going to get the whole room at that point.
Hey, Ryan, you want to see something interesting?
I do. Do I?
This is a Hudley.
Oh, you have one right? I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know. Look at that quality. There you go.
Look at how
Woo!
wide of a shot we have here. Now let me just tighten it up a little bit.
So there you go. It solves multiple purposes at that point. But, it does actually illustrate pretty nicely, what the capability is there. And again, we're still talking about items that don't break the bank by itself, right? They're still simple. It doesn't take a four-man team to set it up. It makes sense, which I think is important to note. It actually makes sense for most of the people in the room. There aren't all these cables and adapters and things like that. It's a small closed system that works.
Yeah, in both of these cases, these are USB plugs that most people have on their laptops.
Right.
And usually you can plug them both in. So meaning one of the huddle pods, okay, that little adapter right there is wireless, but it's just a USB adapter. And then the other huddle pod, if there's a second one, works off of it as well. And the camera runs on, I think it's USB 3.0, but it's still USB.
Right.
So these are pretty standard items.
Right. Now, I want to add one wrinkle, okay? Because this is how these usually go. It's like, we're going to do this, but also this is what we want because this is what we're used to. And in many cases, what we're hearing is we also want a screen in the room so that a virtual person, somebody on the other end, on the far end, can share their screen and we can see what's going on. Now, some groups will say, everyone's going to be on their laptop. We're all logged into the same Zoom meeting and that'll work perfectly, right? Come on.
Well, maybe not perfectly.
Maybe not perfectly, right. There's some challenges with that, and if there isn't someone in the room that really kind of knows what's going on from a technology perspective, you're going to have problems. There's just no way around it. Usually we recommend that people don't do that. Especially from an audio perspective, if anyone has ever been in a Zoom meeting where somebody sitting nearby them is also in that Zoom meeting, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now multiply that times 10 to 15. And we're not even talking bandwidth yet. In any case, adding a screen in the room, right, which that laptop is feeding out to. All right, well, now you're just making what the laptop is seeing bigger so the 10 to 15 people can see it. Great. Right? That's an easy add-on. A lot of venue spaces will have a screen that will serve that purpose. Wonderful. Now, what if you wanted to share content in the room? Well, in many cases, we'd actually recommend that there be one other laptop that is logged in, that is not connected to audio, so that there's no weird feedback going on. And then just share your screen right from that. And now the one that's connected to the screen in the room becomes a receiver, and everyone in the room is seeing it, and the person behind the laptop is still sharing slides, driving their own content. So that has actually worked for most groups on the smallest scale. That's kind of been the setup for them.
It already sounds confusing, I got to be honest.
It's a little complicated, I'm not going to lie.
Confusing.
That's why people call us for that, right?
Oh,
when it's
right,
just one
good.
laptop, you can do that. You can handle that yourself.
You mean they call corporate AV?
Well,
I'm sorry. This wasn't supposed to be a shameless plug, but I went at it anyways.
Look, we got the logo in the corner over there. It's
all right. So let's take the next step. What's the next step in a hybrid meeting?
Well, I assume we want to breeze past our demo for the day. Right? We'll come back to that because we did have something kind of ready. Let's come back to it. Let's save it for the end. That'll be something. That'll be something fun, right? So there's another way we can do the above that you will be interested to see, but we're going to come back to that. So as soon as we increase the scale a little bit, now we're talking 15 to say 25, 30. Now we got a decent sized room. Now we're talking about microphones. Now, the second we add a microphone, everything kind of changes from a production perspective, from a technology perspective, right? And it doesn't matter how many there are. It's not like, just add one.
One lavalier for my keynote, for my main presenter, and that changes everything?
It changes everything. One push-to-talk microphone, which are very common in boardroom events, right? A lot of the time, it's like we just want to do that, but add hybrid. And it's kind of an overhaul at that point. Because, yes, we still have the microphones, but we have a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's complicated. And it's complicated because you're actually really catering to two different audiences at the exact same time. This gets back to how many times have we had the same conversation, right? Where you're actually doing two shows. That's kind of what it is again. There's a little less polish, a little less bell and whistle, but it is still complex from a technology perspective.
Can we just see that pretty picture again?
Yeah, I'd be happy to show it.
So that's a lot of lines.
Mm-hmm.
The pretty colors.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of screens.
Oh, yeah.
I see a much bigger camera. It kind of looks like there's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on, and look, we're not talking about a lot, in terms of production level, right? We're talking, look, there's two speakers there. It's not a huge ballroom. There's one screen. There could be two just as well, but it doesn't necessarily need a huge production to become a complex production. So there's adapters, there are interfaces, and then there's the famous mix minus. Wow. Anybody in tech is going to know what a mix minus is. We actually had a conversation the other day where we were on with the client's in-house tech person who was probably originated from IT and then just had to learn a hell of a lot more in a short amount of time. But we had a conversation with that person, and he said, "Can you walk me through the setup? Like, how is that going to work?" And I said, "Well, and then this is going to be a mix minus." And he said, "Ding, ding, ding, ding." He said, "That's the magic word I was looking for. That's exactly what I wanted to hear because it's often overlooked and it's critical. And it actually takes somebody who knows what they're doing from an audio perspective to make that work, right?" So again, one simple addition becomes a much more complex setup.
Hey, Ryan, we had a pretty important comment come in. If we could just let's take a quick look at Whoa. Gee. So the microphone, she thought the microphone was a broom. Can we just
No.
see that picture one more time?
Yeah, hold on. Let's bring that up.
Let's see how much of a broom this
I'll
thing
be
was.
honest with you. I had no idea what Dana was referring to. A microphone. Oh, this.
Oh, yeah. It does look like a broom.
It does look like a broom.
Nice.
Wow. Well,
Thank you, Dana.
thank you, Dana.
That was good.
It is not a broom. It is a microphone.
It is, in fact, a microphone.
Well, and Joe, I will point out, right?
Yes.
There is also another difference to that setup. Whereas we started with this, we could very easily end up with this. Now,
Ooh,
the reason that's important,
it's a nice camera.
it is a nice camera,
Yeah.
and we're not talking about, super high-end camera because that rabbit hole goes pretty deep. But we're talking about something that someone can stand behind, zoom in and zoom out, follow, sharpen. I mean, we have control at that point. Whereas this is quite literally a webcam, a professional wide-angle webcam. This is a production camera, right? Sometimes we're locking it off and pointing it at a stage and, pointing it at the presenter and just leaving it there. But oftentimes we actually have somebody there to make sure that whatever it needs to be captured is what is being captured. It could also be, if it's a boardroom setup, following along to pick up whoever's talking. And then we don't have to worry. Now we're kind of increasing the production level a little bit, for sure. And there's a little bit that, that comes along with that from a tech perspective. We have adapters, we have cabling, we have another person in the room, in many cases, that camera operator. So worth pointing out.
Yeah, things can get pretty complicated pretty quick. So, and that once you add another camera or you add another screen or you add additional microphones, then
We're going
everything
tier
just
3 now, Joe.
starts
That's tier
to
3.
add up pretty quick, and so that requires people, and it requires time to set up, and it requires testing.
Right.
Those are all critical things. So when do we get to do the demo? I mean,
Now's good. Now's good.
all right. Let's do it. We have a new toy.
We're taking it back to tier 1, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
Taking it back to tier 1 because we have had a lot of tier 1 come in late and last second, and so we've had to adapt very quickly, just like we've had to for the last 3 years. And we needed to come up with simple solutions. And we think we've tracked one down that we've used a number of times. Now we have inventory of these items, and it is a pretty hot commodity.
Who?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, who?
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 Well, it's good that you bring that up. We are talking about the Meeting Owl Pro.
Boom!
Yes.
It actually looks like an owl. This is the first time noticing this.
That is why it's called the Meeting Owl Pro.
I'm dumb.
That is pretty cool, right?
I'm fairly fabulous, but also slow on the uptake, apparently.
So our little friend here, the Meeting Owl Pro, is pretty interesting. So it has a microphone built in, and it has cameras built in. And we're going to show you the cameras, but camera is the first thing. So very similar to the Hudley camera that we showed, which is the little guy, and the hockey puck like Huddle Pod Air. Those two work together. All right. Well, this Meeting Owl Pro is a lot of words. Meeting Owl Pro is to combine those two. And so we happen to have one right here. So let's add this Meeting Owl Pro.
Hey, it's you. You're here
Hi.
twice.
I'm here twice. So we got our little friend over here. And if you happen to notice in the upper left-hand corner, there's like a little thing up there.
There is a little thing up there.
Pretty cool, right?
Wow.
Let me show you cooler. Let me go to the presenter enhance mode. I don't know what's going to happen. But
By the way, you're seeing AV people totally geek out over a new toy, so just don't make fun of us, okay?
Okay, so I'm turning over here. It's now doing some adjusting on its own. I'm not touching anything. That is because it is controlled by an app, which you cannot see with the light, but we'll show you in a second. And then let's say we have a panel or a group of people. I can now go to a panoramic mode and add that in. And so literally every person could be seen from around the room. That's a 360. This is behind where I'm looking. So I'm looking here. This is behind it. This is to one side of it. And this is to another side of it. So it's taking a 360-degree shot all at once. And it's still enhancing and trying to get my good side. We're not sure where that is yet.
I gotta say
We're
the follow has
working on our
actually
good side. But
it's actually held up pretty well. Because a lot of like AI driven cameras, you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and then it like slowly moves over, and by that time the person's already moved away from that. Like this is actually tracking, I would say, better than I've seen most hold up. Wow. Okay.
yeah, and that's just, it's doing its thing. So let's, if I could,
Oh, and I
exit
get
here.
owls can turn their heads all the way around. This is all making sense to me now.
So here's our app. Yeah. See if you can swap that
There we
back
go.
over there. So this is some of the controls right there.
Camera lock and zoom. Nice. So that you can, if there's a presenter and we want to make sure we're focused on the presenter, well then lock that down. Presenter enhance. Was that? I can't see the fine print.
Yeah, presenter enhance is what it was. It was kind of. Oh, hold on.
You
It
get
was
a phone
kind
call.
of. I was getting a call apparently. Yeah, why don't we? Yeah. So the presenter enhance, you'll see now in the other image, it'll tend to do some adjusting.
Okay.
So if I take that off, it's not going to do that. It's going to take a straight shot. And then the panoramic, I just hit that button and that's gone. I add it back in. We're back. Everybody's seen each other.
So, Joe, is that something that somebody in the room could download the app and operate themselves?
They could.
Okay.
They could totally download this application. It is for free, and they could operate this part themselves.
Okay.
And so part of what we've been trying to come up with is ways for people to also keep down their technical staff and some of those costs that are associated with more complicated meetings.
Right. Well, and the nice thing about this too is that it's one thing, right? It's one thing that bring it with a laptop and you're done, right? And now 10, 15 people, 20 people even, and actually we can talk about the nice extra feature next, but now it's those two things and you have function at that point. It may not be dressed up, it may not work for every situation, but when you have that kind of audience size in one space, it is perfectly capable of creating a quality experience. And I think that's what people are after, without having to break the bank, and without having to, scratch your head and try to figure out all the adapters and cables and what's plugged into what and why am I hearing feedback. And it's just one thing and it's doing the work for you. So I think it actually is a really, really strong tool, and it's something that has become increasingly demanded, from groups
Absolutely.
coming into these spaces.
The range on this is twice that of the other items. So that you're talking about 20 feet. So you could put this in a hollow square, a typical meeting setup. You could put it in a U shape, very typical meeting setup. And now everybody can see the participants in the room. So it's pretty interesting. So we'll show you this other piece, which I'm going to put my phone up to screen. You'll see something called,
There we go.
Owl Connect.
Tell me more.
Well, let me tell you about Owl Connect, Mr. Finch. Okay, because if we go onto the website, we can actually connect two owls together via Bluetooth. Those two are going to connect, use the application, and now you've expanded and doubled the capacity on both of these.
Joe, that's a real hoot. Sorry.
Wow. Wow. That was not good.
I was waiting to say that for a while.
That is so not good. I take back my fairly fabulous comment.
That felt like a fairly fabulous
I
comment.
don't know. That was pretty dicey.
So you're telling me you could have two of these things?
I am telling you we can have two of these, and that we're going to double our pleasure, double our fun, just like the old commercials. And that's our Meeting Owl Pro. We have these in inventory here, and they are being used very frequently in the next week.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
But either way, I figured this might be a good way for us to show people some things.
Well, and so I don't want to even glaze past that feature too quickly, because that is in and of itself, very nice. That is in and of itself something that The other options don't replicate well, right? They don't expand easily. A lot of time at that point, we're talking about 2 of these, a camera switcher, and more of these in order to expand. And again, for the highest levels and for productions or meetings that are high leverage, that may be the right fit, and it often is. But in most cases, getting 2 or 3 more people to show up to a meeting shouldn't overhaul your budget, right? It shouldn't reinvent everything that you have to do now. And so that's actually a really nice feature to be able to expand, without changing dynamically, what's going in the room, because they're connected to the same device, right? So that ends up being the key. It's doing all the work for you, all the work that we're having to do in the bigger productions that's fairly complicated. It's doing it right inside of this thing, and for the smaller scale meetings, the ones that are purely function over form, I think it does a fantastic job.
So I expect that we're going to be seeing this a lot in the breakout room area when the general session is maybe the more elaborate drawing and cameras, and because then you usually have a bigger crowd, you have microphones, you have PA systems.
Right.
But this type of item is good during those smaller rooms where people are getting together and maybe a couple of participants could make it. So
Absolutely.
there's a very high demand. And we're going to talk about high demand in just a minute. But do we have anything else on our hybrid meeting that we want to review?
I have more owl jokes.
I think we're going to move on then.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me just use my controls, and I'm not really using controls. I use my keyboard for that one. I'm sorry.
Well, not
Either way, now I do have the owl muted, by the way.
Smart.
Yes. Otherwise, you would have all those terrible noises that we were talking about earlier.
And I will say that I had only this much certainty that Joe was going to pull it off, and he did. He pulled it off flawlessly, so well done.
Thank you. The show's not over, though.
There's time to blow
time. It. Totally still time. So, we also wanted to provide some updates.
Yes.
Because there's been a lot of activity. And, it's not just us, the entire industry around the country. Next week, we're going to have someone on who represents a national organization who's going to talk a little bit about that. But just even on a local level, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, we want to tie in some of the simple things. There are tremendous shortages around the country of several really critical parts of an event. So anyone who has started to talk to the different venues, the hotels, the hospitality venues, they've had staffing shortages for quite a while. Okay, you're also seeing shortages on food. And I'm sure they're telling you, well, this may not be available, but this would be, or you have to get in your final head counts a little bit earlier, or we need to know this right away. They don't have the same inventories. They just don't have the same flexibility to move and adjust, last minute. Well, on the meeting side and event side, there's kind of 3 big pieces that go into our puzzle. This first one is actually improved a little bit, which is shipping and trucking. Now, a few months back, there was a terrible shortage on trucking, but that's improved. That's definitely better right now. Then you go to the next piece, which for us is on the equipment side. Now, a lot of the technology being trucking is better, but still tight. Excellent point.
No problem.
But now when you go to the technology side, there are very particular items that are in very high demand. So any computers, cameras are in huge demand all across the country. Okay, wireless microphones, huge demand. All of the core items that go into doing a hybrid type of event or meeting are in very high demand. And so those things, you got to figure those things out pretty quickly, because it's normally we would then turn to other partners in our industry, and then we would acquire additional equipment so we could support our client's meeting. Very common, no big deal, very simple to do. It's like getting more chairs, or more tables for your event. Same thing. But those groups are also tapped out of equipment now. And so it's there's a real run on equipment, mainly because you can't really buy more right this second. because of all the supply chain issues you've heard of in the last 2 years and all of the computer chips and electronics is way behind. And so they're literally 6 months to get items at this point in time. And some very difficult. So many cases, you're not going to be able to purchase items. And so the additional rental is very important. So there's a big shortage of equipment around the country. And then we have the most important part of the equation.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
And that is staffing. Now, our industry was hit tremendously hard during the pandemic. Many people had to leave the industry. They left the industry, they moved, they had to take jobs doing other things. I mean, not many people can wait around 2 years for a job. So staffing and skilled staff is at a premium right now. And that is certainly going to be very complicated for many groups around the country. The number one thing you can do about that to make your event go off smoother is book your events earlier. If you're waiting until a week before, 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, 4 weeks before, it's too close, to be honest. When you're in season, it's very close. So book ahead. Make those calls now. You don't have to finalize everything, but get those calls in now. Work out a plan. That way you're not surprised, at the end when that in-person event is now a hybrid event. And it now requires a lot more technology and a lot more staffing. Finch, besides booking ahead, is there anything else that people should be thinking about during these times?
Well, that's a good question. I could come up with a few things off the top of my head, but I mean, having the conversations early about, are we going to make this meeting hybrid flexible, right? Having that conversation. I know a lot of times it's, the stakeholders or the people who are making the event decisions that many planners are turning to. They don't want to decide yet because they don't want to ruffle any feathers. I think taking a hard line and saying this is or is not available for hybrid, I think is critical at this point, because it is very difficult, to Joe's point, to expand quickly, especially if we're talking, right? Hold on, wait for it. Especially if we're already talking about microphones, camera, adding hybrid.
Was that a broom? Sorry.
No, this is not a broom. This is a microphone. It's a push-to-talk microphone. So in many cases, we're already set up for those things. So adding the hybrid component is a level of complexity that, is hard to create on the fly. And in our line of work, flexibility is so important, and we pride ourselves in being able to be flexible on site. But when you talk about changing fundamentally the nature of the job, while we're there, much more difficult to do, and so I think that's worth having that conversation early. Joe, is there anything else that you were alluding to?
I only have one more. Budgets. You should really plan that everything is 30% more expensive. Mm-hmm. And there's not really a nice way to say that other than you should plan for it, because everything is significantly more expensive than you remember it 3 years ago. And that is it's a long time, right? 3 years. So, yeah. But I think people are caught off guard by that. And so it's best if we kind of warn people, because everything is more expensive. And it when you're going to get gas, when you're buying milk, anything you buy right now is at least 30% more.
So what you're saying, Joe, is you're not just padding those pockets with 30% more profit, right?
I'm sorry to say, my friends, we are not.
No.
But either way, Ryan, I don't know how much we want to. I think that's probably about the best kind of update we can get. But, we might have some additional guests here.
And trying to see if would that be?
Oh, I see a wave. Oh, look at
hey! Hold on, wait. Let me take the banner away. Now you can see right up north in the video there. She's waving. She's wiggling. You're very close, Joe. Not quite, but we'll take it. There you go. Nailed it. Oh, so there you go. We got somebody participating who is just walking by.
Look at that. We got random strangers.
And actually, while we're on the topic, I'm just kidding. There's nobody here. Didn't see that coming, did you?
I know. We're running a hybrid event over on this side. So, we have a hybrid meeting. But no, I think that was really it. You know, we just wanted to give everybody different tools so that they could have a good sense of, you know, options. Because I think coming up with, if you plan it ahead of time and you have discussions with your technology provider, you're just going to have more ways to do things. And, you know, do that ahead of time, and then everything's available to you. You're probably going to get better pricing. It's going to work out to be a better situation for everyone involved.
Agreed.
So, Ryan, we are at 41 minutes. I just don't think we should drag this out any longer.
Nope. No, I think that's all. By the way, I will say this was not a sponsored post. I know that's very common in this video podcasting world, but this was not a sponsored post. All right, we were a bunch of AV professionals who said this thing is awesome, and you should be aware of it because it will solve a lot of your problems. So
there's literally no sponsoring going on here at all.
Right, but that does sound like an interesting idea. Anyway, we'll keep that in mind moving forward. But I did just want to make that point because we don't have skin in that game.
fundraisingmeter.com.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, Finch, time to take it out of here.
Okay. Well, very good.
Where are they going to find us?
They will find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube Live. They're going to do that every Wednesday at 1 p.m. And while they're there, they should really drop us a comment and be part of the show. We'll answer it live. That's the whole reason we're doing it live. Or you can ask whether or not something is a broom or not. Thank you, Dana. Anyway, other than that, smash the subscribe button, comment, share, all of the above. Show us some love, much appreciated. And we're going to do this, each and every week. And of course, you can then find the little bite-sized pieces. I feel good about this. I feel like there are some good bite-sized pieces that we're going to take out of this and post them on Instagram and Facebook. I think that's all we got for him today, huh?
I think that's all we got.
All right. Well,
thank you.
That was great. All right. Until next time.
See you later.